In Star Wars, Ben Kenobi makes a call to rescue Luke Skywalker from the Sand People that he tells him is a Krayt dragon. I don't know if it's pronounced Krayt or Crate. I've heard it both ways. I think I imprinted on Krayt as a small child, and that's probably my preference, but I might have made up that pronunciation. You know how when you see a word written and you don't hear it spoken, sometimes you have a different pronunciation in your head from what other people have. That's why Alec Guinness says Dagobah system and Mark Hamill says Dagobah system. Was the Krayt Dragon call that Ben Kenobi makes also the skeleton that C-3PO walks past in the desert? I think they've established that pretty well now. But at one point, we just were calling that thing in the desert a sandworm because there were no visible legs in the film. It just looks like a skeleton. You know what it is, right? It's a skeleton from the Disney film One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing. And they were loading up a cargo plane to take to Tunisia at the prop shop, and they were underweight or they had extra capacity, and they were like, "What else you got?" And the guy goes, "You want this skeleton?" They're like, "Sure." And so then they didn't need to take it back, so they just abandoned it, left it in the desert for all these years. But I was having a conversation at one point in the early 90s with a correspondent of mine, Dave West Reynolds, and I'm talking like actual handwritten letters sent through snail mail correspondence. And we got to talking about the skeleton that C-3PO walks past. And was it a Krayt dragon? And was it this? And la-di-da-di-da. And I said, for me, what it is isn't as important as what it represents. Filmically, cinematically, it is Threepio's Thanatopsis. It's his contemplation of death because he's wandering through this arid, miserable, desolate place, and he sees this skeleton of some creature that didn't survive. And it says to you, maybe I won't survive, you know. And so it is the Star Wars equivalent of a bleached cow skull with a tumbleweed rolling past it in a Western. That's what it is. And he was like, my God, you're absolutely right. Now, funnily enough, this person that I'm corresponding with later goes to Tunisia and finds those bones in the desert and sends me one of them as a gift. So I own a prop from a Disney movie and a Star Wars movie, as I've mentioned before. The Mandalorian sort of demystified the Krayt dragon. There was a certain mystique to the Krayt dragon, though, up until Ralph McQuarrie illustrated one for one of his books in the 90s. And I thought this toy of a Ray Harryhausen dragon looked enough like it that I could paint it. It had a collar around its neck that I had to cut off. It's in a box somewhere. And initially, to connect the shortened neck back together, I used a printer paper dowel from work and put it in there and chopped it down and slid the head on. And the other day, when I was finding the pieces of this, I couldn't find it. I'm like, where's the piece that connected them? Yeah, it's in there. It's fallen down inside the body, and, well, unless I pop one of the legs out and try to push it in from the back, there's not really any way of getting to it. So for today, this is a piece of wood that I found on the ground, so just to keep his head in position there slightly. But yeah, so I painted this guy, made him look a little more Ralph McQuarrie-ish. McQuarrie does a thing where there's always a gap in the teeth, which, interested me, obviously. I might or might not have modified the teeth on this before I painted it. But anyway, that's my Ralph McQuarrie Krayt Dragon. You may be thinking, why is this in the Making Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins playlist? This sounds like a Toyaholic video. Aha! So while I'm doing this big sift at the moment of going through items in multiple locations and trying to pair them up, I found this little box right here that says Krayt Skeleton. This is what I use to represent a toy that Kenner never made. It was since made as part of a Pride display, and I do have that now. But to my knowledge, that's the only representation it's had in figural form to go with the Kenner Star Wars figures. So I had to get creative. He-Man Battle Bones. This is what I used in Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins. Here's a back half, here's a front half, and a leg from another one just fell off. And there would be a little handle piece that keeps them together. And you can see the screws that I took out of it. But the handle would go right here. And so this was what was lying there on a yellow thermal blanket, I think across the pillows on my bed, to be Threepio's Thanatopsis. It didn't sound right. I thought I was saying Threepio's Thanatopsis. So, but you put an action figure next to this, and Threepio is going to be that tall, and it just didn't look right. Prior to shooting Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins, I'd found these toys that I thought had a very Star Warsy look to them. And I'm not the only person that thought this. I found a website that talks about this too. They were called Z-Bots. And there was a figure named Glaxar, who was also released in a different paint scheme as Plexus. I'm pretty sure it was Plexus that I bought, that I spray painted gold and turned into a C-3PO. A little 2-inch tall version of C-3PO that could move his head and move his arms and move his hips. And there was another figure called like Tito, or released in a different color scheme as Schleppy, or something like that. And he looked very much like R2-D2. So somewhere, at some point in time, I had a little bitty R2 and 3PO. Found a great photo on that website comparing them to the height of a regular R2-D2 figure. Cannot locate them now. So I don't have the Z-Bot that stood in the shot with the He-Man battle bones to show you. But I do have a remaining Z-Bot in my collection. Remember this old thing? It's pretty empty right now because I've taken a lot of the customs out of it that were being used as Cantina aliens and different things in Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins. Down here in the bottom tray, here's a little Z-Bot that I painted to give him a more Tatooine color scheme. But he has 6 limbs and a very long proboscis there. I hope I'm pronouncing that word correctly. I've only ever seen it in print. But he's fully posable. All 6 of his limbs move. So you got 4 legs, he's got 2 arms, and he's got a head that will go up and down. So 7 points of articulation on a 2-inch tall figure. That's kind of impressive for the day. The reason I wanted that one was to take care of these guys. And they are some repainted plastic anteaters. Don't remember where I found them, and there are 5 of them in some more earth tone, Tatooine kind of color schemes here. So there are my anteaters, and you're like, what bizarre tangent is he on right now? No, it's from Star Wars. It's from the novelization of Star Wars, and come to find out, when I went to look it up for this video, it's in 2 drafts of the script. A robot that is herding along what George Lucas, Ellen Dean Foster, described as attenuated anteaters, which means they were very gaunt or thin. I used to think it meant they had antennae when I was a kid. But, so, there are the 5 of those, and there he is. They don't appear in Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins, but that's the only Z-Bot left in my collection. Let me spread these guys out here on the tabletop. And I guess at some point I was going to make another iteration of Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins and have these guys in a background shot there in Mos Eisley as Luke and Ben are walking away from selling their speeder. So they were prepped, never filmed, never used, but that's my only remaining Z-Bot. So while we're on a tangent, I'm going to tell you one more tangent about the He-Man battle bones. One of the people that I sent a copy of Whoever Dies the Most Toys Wins to was my friend Ryan Pominville. And he said, you should turn that into a demon dog from Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm like, a what now? These things that were attacking the Satellite of Love. I don't think I've ever seen the episode, actually, so if I've misspoken, you should really just relax. Ryan had one. After the show was over, first they did a drawing for a contest, and somebody won one of their demon dogs, which was this He-Man Battle Bones with ears added, painted pink, and with like details on the face. Out of 1,000 people, somebody won one. Cool. And apparently they still had a bunch that were just cluttering up the workspace, and so they sold them on the website after that. There we go. That's what it actually looks like to carry He-Man figures right there in the little clips. So you can carry 12 He-Man figures, which I don't think shoulder to shoulder a bunch of He-Man figures are going to fit on there. And then in the skull, you would keep their accessories. and you would tote it along by that little hole right there. So it's a carrying case for He-Man toys. And I contacted Ryan prior to making this video, and I said, "Hey, have you still got your Demon Dog for Mystery Science Theater 3000? I would love to, incorporate it, include a photo of it. Take me a picture, and I'll put it in my video that I'm planning." He goes, "Oh yeah, man, that thing just started falling apart. Yeah, I eventually had to trash it. It was so sad." And I was like, "Doggone it." I'm still going to talk about it. So, but yeah, at the point that he saw whoever dies the most toys wins, that was one of his reactions, was to say, "Oh, you should turn that into this." And I never did, but technically, I've got enough parts here to make a second one, even though some of the clips have broken off. I still have the clips in this box. And I've got this piece that I don't know if that's the same plastic that it came in, but it's certainly a good match, so I threw that in there as well. But yeah, that's my He-Man Battle Bones. I don't have the Threepio Z-Bot to compare it to, but I've got this guy that's herding along the attenuated anteaters. And it occurred to me later, I'm like, we don't actually know what a Nerf herder looks like, and we don't know what these attenuated anteaters were called. So why couldn't these be Nerfs? And why can't this guy be a scruffy-looking Nerf herder? I was always fascinated by the crows in the trees. I was always fascinated by the Krayt dragon in Star Wars. Number one, the call that Ben Kenobi makes, the call of the Krayt dragon. I've heard it pronounced Krayt, I've heard it pronounced Krayt. My imprint on it was pronouncing it Krayt. And wrong or right, that's the spell. That's the pronunciation I'm going to go with. Sneeze. In Star Wars, Ben Kenobi makes a call to rescue Luke Skywalker from the Sand People that he tells him is a Krayt dragon. Krayt.